The experience, spirituality explained. Spirituality is a much used and much misunderstood term. Unfortunately, it seems to instantly cause eye-rolling and alienates a large proportion of the population by its mere utterance. Personally, I'd like to see the term used less, but if we are going to continue with it, perhaps a bit of clarification is in order. So here's 5 things you ought to know about spirituality. Spirituality refers to human perception that is beyond the 5 senses and physicality. In the West, tend to think of spirits either as ghosts, or more likely in the UK at least, as delicious, alcoholic beverages. So when someone talks of spirituality, we tend to think them either mad or drunk. But we're not always nutters or alchies. And whilst there are certain things in the spiritual sphere that are quite rightly viewed with a degree of skepticism, one's spiritual nature is primarily a question of perceptivity. Currently, we use our 5 senses to help us perceive the world around us. These senses are fundamentally flawed, but we trust them implicitly. And yet, our eyes don't see and our ears don't hear, they're just receptors, and the brain makes sense of the incoming information in the best interests of our survival. What reality is, therefore, is highly debatable and merely a matter of perception. That a spiritual is undetectable through our traditional 5 senses, but human beings are equipped with the means to experience a dimension beyond the physical. That means beyond the 5 senses, beyond elements, beyond atoms, beyond the electromagnetic spectrum, beyond thought. Deep-seated in all of us there is an innate knowledge that this is true, and traditionally religions have been deemed the means to experience that dimension. However, spirituality has very little to do with religion. People have long confused religion and religious practices with spirituality. Just because one is religious, does not make one spiritual. Science has now endorsed aspects of spirituality. It is a shame that our rational, scientific mindset rarely wishes to even search for things beyond the physical, other than academic theoretical scientists in the mold of Big Bang Theory's Sheldon Cooper. Science, like everything else in our world, is economically driven. Funding is given only to things with profitable applications or the promise of future profit, and profit can only do things in this physical realm, so research on detecting spiritual forces is always likely to suffer. Quantum physics and the scarcely comprehensible string theory and quantum mechanics are now have proved that all existence is one energy. At a subatomic level, particles behave very differently to the physical laws we're accustomed to. Put simply, which will have to do as I am quite simple, all things can be, and are, everywhere in the universe at the same time, until some level of awareness pays attention to them, at which point they become fixed. This was the subject of the infamous Schrödinger's cat experiment. Whilst subatomic particles still fall within the realms of physicality, the incomprehensible forces and energies that govern them do not necessarily, and we cannot experience the subatomic using our limited senses. In fact, we can't even understand it abstractly using our thoughts. As Richard Feynman succinctly put it in 1967, nobody understands quantum theory. This could apply equally to spirituality, as even sages, yogis, and Buddhas say that enlightenment is not something you can get, but something that you are. Cryptic buggers. Spirituality is used as an umbrella term for many things. Spirituality, relating to or affecting the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. Modern spirituality is centered on the deepest values and meanings by which people live. It embraces the idea of an ultimate or an alleged immaterial reality. It envisions an inner path enabling a person to discover the essence of his, her being. These are the definitions provided by the ever-reliable Wikipedia and Oxford Dictionary respectively, but having attended my first ever Mind, Body and Spirit festival, there really is no end to the number of things that get labeled as spiritual. I still remain cynical about a good deal of things I saw at that festival, but that doesn't mean that there isn't something spiritual going on for the people who adhere to it. With no means of objectively measuring someone's spiritualness, who are we to say? That means that both religious followers and scientists can be highly spiritual people. Though I think if you look at the pursuits and actions of both those parties, they are in the minority. It's not just for hippies. Whilst I wouldn't describe myself as a hippie, I know some would, particularly if they catch me doing yoga in my Aladdin pants. But I wouldn't describe myself as spiritual either. I definitely have an interest in it, but I, like 95% of the population, am still deeply ingrained in the physical world. I have attachments, compulsions, ideas and philosophies. I have ambitions and wants and needs. I'm not exactly sure what they are anymore, but despite having faith that I have found a few paths that could lead me to experiencing a deeper dimension, I haven't embraced them. Because abandoning normal human existence in search of the spiritual could ultimately be a waste of life. But ask any serious meditator and they will tell you there is something to nurturing that inner sense of awareness, of consciousness, and that it brings about huge benefits within our human existence, and the fact that meditation, mindfulness, and yoga has entered the mainstream consciousness proves that it's not just for hippies. I spent my younger years as a vehement atheist, resentful of religion for duping people and cynical of the supernatural and anything that science couldn't explain. I now realize that what I do not know, and without experiencing something we cannot write off the possibility. But now I'm into spiritual stuff. I realize that I don't know any of my rants and musings to be true either. I haven't experienced it, it's all just a philosophical exercise, but through certain yogic practices, and cultivating that inner perception it may just be possible to make spirituality a reality. Operator, if you like our article, give Conscious Reminder a thumbs up, and help us spread love light. Operator.